When they have a son, it's their opportunity to make their son into the man of their dreams.
Like, there's just something about him that makes me feel like I could leave my husband, but it's all okay because I've got him.
Do you ever worry that your nurturing instincts might be holding your children back from true independence? Today, I'm going to show you how to avoid this gentle parenting trap and instead raise kids who are empowered, independent, and are able to launch into the world. Hi, welcome back to Hi Fam. I'm Avital, and today we're diving into the strange world of sunbuns. What is a sunbund, you might ask, and rightfully so? Well, a sunbund, which is comprised of the words son and husband, is exactly what it sounds like. It's when a mother attaches to her son in a way that's more appropriate for a partner. It's when she relies on her son to fulfill her emotional needs. It's when there is a role reversal and her son actually replaces the main man in her life and fills the relational role typically occupied by a partner or husband. Now, this might be literal, like a single mom who doesn't have a man in the family and uses her son to be her date, to be her partner, to fulfill her emotional needs and make her feel the type of love and attachment and connection that she may have wanted and is missing in her adult partnership. But it could also be relevant for all of us because many of us know this dynamic of a baby entering this family, boy or girl, and our feelings that all of our love has been completely taken over by this precious little bundle, that we have no room in our hearts for our significant others anymore, that all of our oxytocin, all of our touch, we're just touched out and completely obsessed and completely focused. We even train our eyes on our child and don't look into the eyes of our significant other anymore. And yes, I'm going to be talking about sons, but this can absolutely apply to daughters as well. In many regards, we're talking about the idea of the devouring mother. We're talking about a transgression of boundaries in a sense when we go too far and we attach too much to our children in maybe inappropriate ways. And we're talking about the classical Freudian Oedipus complex, where Oedipus falls in love with his mother and kills his father, basically replacing his father in his mother's life. Now, this is a weird, cringy, and uncomfortable topic because there's this strange undertone of sexual innuendo between mother and son. And that's certainly present in the Oedipus story. But the truth is, like I've already said, there's some layer of this that relates to all of us parents, some layer of maybe elevating our children to adult status, maybe role reversal, maybe over-attaching and not setting enough boundaries. Or maybe it's just that gentle parenting goes too far for some of us, where we become permissive parents, where we become extra soft and extra nurturing, but we don't know how to hold boundaries. I think all of us can relate on some level or other, so let's get into this. The core idea here is that the child is supposed to meet the emotional needs of the parent and not the other way around. That there is some blurring of boundaries, and maybe it does even go further into what is sometimes known as emotional incest. Now, don't get me wrong, I have 4 sons and a daughter of my own, and I certainly feel all the feelings for my kids. I certainly feel that they do fulfill an emotional role in my life and fill me up with so much love. Just like this mom here.
Do you know how much I love you? I love you more than everything.
Everything.
You can see this mother's joy. She's absolutely besotted with her little boy. And I can relate that feeling where you're just mad about him, where you're just crazy about him or her, and you're just so in love with this little creature. And then you add this level of chivalry that this tiny little boy wants to close the door for his mom, even though he can hardly reach, just so that she has one less thing to do. He's being thoughtful of her. But can you see how sometimes those moments where our kids are more sensitive to us, where our kids are more kind of madly in love with us, unconditional about their love to us, can sometimes creep into our mind? And I don't know, tell me I'm not the only one, but I know that for many of us, you can sometimes feel like, why is my child more sensitive or more loving to me, more giving to me, more fulfilling, easier to love for me than my partner? Let's watch another one. Again, no shade to this mom. She just loves her little boy. She's out on a date with him. But notice the wording. When my husband gives me a mini version of himself to hang out with. put this mother to one side and just analyze the idea behind this for a moment. There's something about this that kind of puts this onus on this little boy to be my date, to be my husband, to be a mini version of my husband that replaces him when he's not there. That gives me that chivalry that is almost a little bit like a trophy or signal that I have male love in my life. There's something a little bit odd about it. Now, not this particular mom. I'm not throwing shade at any of these particular moms. And like I said, I feel all these feelings with my children again. But I just want to highlight how we sometimes can elevate kids into the role of fulfilling our emotional needs or fulfilling that, Instagram, TikTok worthy image of having love in our life, of being unconditionally loved and adored and cherished and doted on, and someone being chivalrous towards us and someone giving us that almost romantic, is it almost romantic? I think that's fair to say, right? Kind of vibe. Now, obviously, this gets elevated to a whole different level when it's a performance, when it's videoed, when it's edited, when it's put together and almost bragged about on TikTok. Look, I don't love it when people brag about their own adult relationships on TikTok because just to me, it seems so personal. Like if you reach those romantic peaks as I have and I enjoy, but I wouldn't want to share that with the world because I think if you reach those romantic peaks, there's something deeply private and personal about it. So I always find it a little bit weird when people are overly romantic, but hey, like everyone needs to do what they want to do and how it works for them. But there's something about putting that out there on the internet with your child that is a little bit performative in a sense. Do you feel me here? I don't know. Am I making too much of this? Let's see another one. Again, the sweetest thing ever, a little boy obsessed with his mom. And that's gorgeous and lovely and sweet and heartfelt and totally innocent. But notice the caption. I've never had a man be this obsessed with me. Why are we comparing sexual, romantic, adult partnerships to the obsession that a child has for their mom? Are we fulfilling some kind of need, scratching some kind of itch for male attention through our children somehow? And is that healthy? Again, none of these are black and white, right? And the point that I'm trying to make is what happens when it goes to the extreme? What happens when we're really experiencing all this doting, loving affection as fulfilling a completely different need? Does it then impede our parenting, our ability to set boundaries and limits and teach the boy, because now he's suddenly someone who we just want love, affirmation, adoration from? That's a question that I think we have to ask.
I will love you always.
Okay, again, sweetest moments of love and connection between mom and kid. I've had these moments with my kids. I have them every day and I adore them. I cherish them. Truly, I do. They're precious in my life. Now let's look at the caption. Becoming a mom has taught me that I will genuinely never have to fight for anyone to be in my life anymore because I have everything I'll ever need in this little human. Again, I don't want to throw shade at this mom. She's just enjoying her kid and more power to her. But I want us to learn something from this. The focus here is on the mother's need. The focus here is on the fact that she's felt in the past that she has had to fight for people to be in her life. But now her son is there. It's a given that she'll receive this love and adoration. It's a given that her needs will be met through his presence. And if we go a little bit further and put it a little bit less kindly, she's kind of saying that he's trapped loving her, and that he has to love her because he's her son. He has to fulfill her need for love because he's her son. Now, he's very little now, and it's all fun and games and innocent and sweet and the most optimum, natural, normal mom and child attachment and bonding, which is something, again, I relate to that. I experience that. My question is, if you have this mindset, what happens when he turns 11, 15, 18, 20, right? Do we evolve out of that mindset? Because I really hope we do. I think this might be appropriate with a newborn or with a toddler or with a little kid like this. But is it appropriate as our children start to grow? And do we, as a culture of gentle parents, etc., all these nurturing moms who are madly in love and besotted with their kids, do we know how to evolve past that and also give them what they need to leave us? She's saying, I'll never have to fight for anyone to be in my life anymore. It's just a very totalitarian statement, as if like for the rest of her life, she's going to have this guy fulfilling her needs. And that's the piece that worries me. And that's what I want to break down for us in this video. Couple more examples here.
So I say I love all my kids equally, but honestly, that last boy just gets a little bit different. Like, there's just something about him that makes me feel like I could leave my husband, but it's all okay because I've got him. I'm showering him with all my love so that when he gets older, he won't feel the need to leave home, because who needs a lover when you've got a mother? And for those who say I'm raising him to be a bad man, I sure as hell am not. Because let me tell you something, when he hits his sisters, do you know what I tell him? It's okay to have a bad day, because it is. Because when I have a bad day, you know what I tell myself? I remind myself to live, laugh, and love, because without a little rain, there ain't no rainbow. Wait, I can't wait for the day that he gets married, and that's only if he ever wants to leave me. Anyway, mothers, we've got to protect our boys. Forget about our daughters, just don't worry about them. They'll be fine. But our sons, our boys, they just need a little bit more love and affection. You know what I mean?
Okay, so this is obviously satire. She's taking this whole idea of sunburns and laughing at it, but she's hitting on something real, right? We see this in the other videos, and we see this in a general trend where there's this idea that I could leave my husband, but I'd be okay because I have his love. I'm filling him with so much love and attention so that when he gets married, if he gets married, he'll never want to leave me, will he? This feeling of, no, he's going to be mine forever. He's going to fulfill my needs forever. Now, if you are thinking, Avital, what are you talking about? This doesn't exist. This is extreme. You're being weird. Why are you talking about emotional incest? This has all got a weird kind of sexual innuendo in there. There's a reason that Oedipus is such a, classic, right? And it lasted the test of time and it became this Freudian idea. There's a reason that mother-in-laws are seen as this kind of almost wicked, evil, at least very threatened and defensive position. There's a reason that there is this kind of stereotype of the mother whose son is too good for anyone. No girlfriend that he ever brings home will be good enough for him. There's a reason that we sometimes say, oh no, he's growing up, he's going to leave me, I can't, I don't want him to, I want him to stay. And there is a reason that failure to launch has become a bigger and bigger problem, especially in the US today. In fact, 52% of 18 to 29-year-olds are still living with their parents, which is a stark rise from decades prior. So this is actually a growing problem where there are other factors, of course, that contribute to this, but part of it is this elongated childhood. And part of that elongated childhood is our needs as parents, our desire, our subconscious drive to keep our children small and dependent on us. Let's keep going.
Do you know what the science is?
Yeah, go on.
I've said this before.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it again. So, yeah, you have those mothers who are like obsessed and no one's ever going to be good enough for their son, blah, blah, blah. Because basically, apparently the science is they were unfulfilled in their relationship. They didn't ever really get the man of their dreams.
Yeah.
They just got like, a nice man, a good husband,
but
whatever.
they weren't obsessed with him.
So basically, when they have a son, it's their opportunity to make their son into the man of their dreams. They make him very polite, very respectful, just like in their eyes, like good as gold, can do no wrong, the perfect man.
Would marry him if
she could.
The son.
So then it's like the point that no girl will ever be good enough. Mm-hmm. And then it's like the mothers, of course, spend all these years, building their sons into these, what they see as amazing men.
Yeah.
And then a girl comes in and takes him away.
Yeah.
So they get to reap the rewards and not the mother.
Absolutely.
So that's apparently the science behind it.
Okay, I don't know if it's the science behind it, but it makes perfect psychological sense. You've invested your heart and soul into this man. And if you're unfulfilled in your adult relationship with a man, or if you don't have that, then you might be transferring and projecting a lot of those needs onto this relationship with the child, which is inappropriate. This video really hit me a little different, and it showed me another angle of the mother who is kind of in denial that she's a mother now. She's dancing for TikTok in a sexy way, and she's putting herself out there in a similar way that teenagers do today. So she's saying, and she writes in the caption for everyone to see, that she wants to show off her stuff, to dance, to be a bit provocative or have a lot of fun on the internet and show how beautiful she is and kind of take part in that dance culture, whatever you want to call it. But she's holding herself back, almost, not quite. She didn't quite hold herself back, did she? Because she did post this video. She's holding herself back because she wants to be appropriate and have boundaries with her teenage son. Her teenage son is going to be angry if she uploads this. And I might say, Like, rightly so on his part. There is no teenage son who wants their mother strutting their stuff on TikTok, the app where all his friends hang out, and they might see her and they might sexualize her, or they might think she's, their age, or all these kind of weird kind of boundary issues. And I think she's almost there, but she isn't there, because at the end of the day, she posted the video saying, I want to let free. I want to be a teenager again. I want to behave in this way, but I'm not going to do that because I can't because of my teenage son. But I want you all to know that I could have. I want you to see me starting and see that I was about to do it, but then that I did respect the boundary somehow. And in that fact, she's actually trespassing the boundary, of course. This, I think, kind of puts a finer point, or kind of adds the vibe, the illustration to what that weird kind of border, that boundary is between being a mother to this son versus being a peer, being someone fun, being someone ultra loving and nurturing. But also the mother side sets boundaries. The mother side has a whole different world to it, has a whole different side of it. And I've spoken about this before on other videos about gentle parenting and reaction videos, where I think that in parenting, we're so obsessed and focused on the empathy, the softness, the warmth, the nurturing, the connection, the lovey-dovey, the besotted adoration, the fun, joy, connection. And that is wonderful. But it's only one side of parenting. And what all of it misses is the other side of parenting. And I've used the analogy of making a cake. When you're making a cake, you can't just make it with flour, or just with water, or just with eggs, or just with sugar. You're going to need a little bit of all and the right amount of different ingredients. Now, all of us are making different cakes. We all live in different cultures with different family structures and sizes, etc. So you might be making a chocolate cake or a banana cake or a lemon cake, whatever. But ultimately, they're all going to have to hit a correct balance in order to come out edible. And none of us can raise kids well, make a good cake, with just the love and the empathy. So let's keep going.
Your son is not your man. Stop treating your son like he's your partner. He is not here to fill the void that man left in you. If there's any issues that you need to resolve in your soul as a woman, not as a mother, you need to work on them, because later on in life, that man is going to grow and he's going to be causing a lot of issues with his little mommy drama because of you into his family and relationships.
So this sounds like a woman who's maybe been a little bit burnt by those adult men with mommy issues, adult men who can't seem to make decisions for themselves, who can't seem to live on their own, who run to mommy with every issue, who have an almost odd, a little bit exaggerated love and respect for their mom that isn't really within the norm of just a healthy love for your parents, but seems a little bit overly attached and kind of codependent.
This message is for all the boy moms who hate men or who have dissented men out of their lives. I just want you to know that it's not fair to your son to have to be the man in your life to take care of you. We know this, that so many women have sons who don't have a good relationship with men, who hate men, or all this, that they put so much pressure on their boys to be there for them and to take care of them. And a lot of it is a lot of manipulation and guilt tripping into their sons to be the man in their lives. Because you've chosen to not create healthy relationships with men, to allow certain things from men, to not get the result from men. You have now put it on your son to be there for you. And in turn, it creates unhealthy relationships with him, for him, with women in his life, because you are making him feel like you are the most important thing in his world. And if anyone comes before him, he's a terrible child. I can't tell you the countless amount of times of working with women who are having these disagreements or tough relationships with their partner's mothers because of that right there, right? Their mother won't let them go. Their mother guilt tripping them to feeling bad. They have to be there in every way possible for their mom because she doesn't have anybody. So now he can't live his life. He can't be happy with his family. He can't be the husband that he may want to be because he has to now make sure that his mother knows that she's not forgotten. But had you had chosen better, had you had made better choices, had you done the work to heal, your son would not have to be your everything in when it comes to being the man in your life. It's just not healthy. It's not fair. And as women who have sons, just know that your son is not here to be your man. He's there to be your son. That's it. That's all.
Fair point. And she's bringing a bit of judgment there, like you made bad choices. And I think this can come from a number of different places, from bad luck and from misfortune and from bad choices. And it doesn't really matter where it comes from. The idea is to become aware of it and make a change. That change can happen in a number of different ways. And I'm going to give you the exact outlines of what you can do to make sure that you don't become this kind of devouring mother, this guilt-tripping mother, and you don't apply role reversal to your sons or your daughters, because it totally happened that way as well, where you make them growing up feeling like they have to take care of you. Now, I've already said that I think our children do owe us something. I think we all owe each other something in a family, and our children do owe us a relationship, respect, to be part of our lives, to let us kind of witness them grow up and support them in their lives. But there is, a level of separation that has to happen for a child to launch and to have their own independence and become an adult where you're not actually parenting them anymore. We're going to get into that. Let's watch one more here.
You got your son, your dad, and your husband. Rank them from most important to least important.
My son and
First,
then my dad.
Okay, yeah.
And then my husband.
That's a very common pick. Yeah. So you got your son, your husband, and your dad.
Oh, I know this is.
Rank them from most important to least.
Husband, son, dad. And I love my dad. But I think your husband should be your new family. Your son will make his own family.
Yeah.
And your dad's already had his.
Okay, interesting.
So I love this little clip because I think it exactly illustrates what I'm trying to say. The first woman says, my son comes first, then my dad, then my husband. And that is, I think, the norm. She says that that's a very common answer. And I think that's what most women are going to say or going to feel in the zeitgeist of today, in today's culture, is that their son comes first. Their son is their everything. And then their dad, because he's a blood relative, he gave me life, he supported me, and my husband can be last. But the second woman not only says what I think would be a correct ranking, although I don't like ranking people by order of importance anyway, but put that to one side. I think it would be more psychologically correct for the child themselves, actually. And she gives a fantastic answer. She says, my dad already had his family. He knows who he's committed to, his wife and children. My son will have his own family in the future. He's not my husband. He's going to have his own wife. It's that biblical idea that man leaves his parents and bonds with his wife. And I think that has meaningful, in-depth, long-lasting, ancient psychological wisdom and truth, where the man does need to grow up and leave his mom. And she understands the proper place of her husband is as her life partner to go through life together.
Now, here's how to develop an eatable situation, if you want to, with your children. And some of you will take this road, so maybe this will help you do it better if that's really what you're into. So the thing to do is make sure that your marriage is quite hostile, so that you have a lot of underlying resentment to your partner. And that will encourage you to subtly turn one of your children or more of them against that parent without them really knowing it. And you can do that by covertly reinforcing them when they do that, or ignoring them, that's even better, when they do the opposite. So maybe your daughter is being nice to your husband, you're really mad at him, so that you make it known to her using one strategy or another that you don't really approve of that sort of behavior. So that's a pretty effective way of doing it. Then the next thing to do is, this works really well if you have a young boy and you're a woman. It's like, you want to develop a lot of hostility towards your husband, so you really don't want to have anything to do with him, and you don't really want him to even touch you, and because of that, you're not even really all that happy about men. And so then you do two things, is that you turn to your son, because he's kind of harmless, and you make your relationship way closer than it should be with him, and you encourage all sorts of things that are really kind of on the edge of acceptable behavior, and at the same time, you repress and crush any part of him that would develop the kind of masculinity that would enable him to turn into the kind of monster that you think your husband is. So that's really effective, and people can do that for like 20 years, and the outcome is that I have a lot of business as a therapist, because I do see this sort of thing, and a lot of what happens in therapy is that it's an interesting thing.
So that is Jordan Peterson explaining what you would do if you wanted to develop this Oedipal, complex, this kind of syndrome of a son who hates his father and over-attaches to his mother. And he's talking exactly about the things that I've outlined in this video, this almost inappropriate behavior with a son. And he's also mentioning the hostility towards the father, where we might subtly and covertly reward kind of distinction, a separation, a disdain, a contempt for daddy, and punish any closeness with daddy, right? If I give my child a lot of attention when he's being mean to his father, oh, come here, poor baby, was daddy mean to you? I've got you, I love you, I'm going to connect you, I'll give you what you need. And I really become very hostile. Like, no, daddy wasn't that great. I bought you that thing, right? Etc. If I become competitive with my husband, all of the resentment that I have in my relationship with him, or if he's left, or if we've had a nasty divorce, or if he's not in the picture, right? This a resentment towards men as a conglomerate, like as this idea, as perhaps a gender. And then I turn my son and sometimes my daughter into my allies, right? You're on my side, you're on mommy's side, you would pick me, right? That's how we develop this kind of complex. Let's go further into the devouring mother.
Well, what happens? Well, you come across a gingerbread house. Well, that's pretty damn convenient. You need a house. It's more than you could even hope for. It's not just a house. It's a house made out of candy. Well, what's inside a house made out of candy? A witch who wants to fatten you up and eat you. And that's the devouring mother, and that's an old fairy tale. You're with your parents, and you're not yet a fully fledged individual. And so what you have to do is you have to become part of the group.
The devouring mother. This is the idea of the mother who's providing endless candy, no boundaries. You can come, you can eat. I'll nurture you. I'll love you. I'll empathize with you. I'll fatten you up. You don't have to become strong or masculine or capable or develop any sort of competence. I'll take care of everything. But notice in the story with Hansel and Gretel, as Dr. Peterson is pointing out, the trade-off, the price that the child pays. The child might get all that candy and empathy and warmth and love and food, but he is trapped. He is trapped. He has to stay there. The witch needs him to eat. She's going to devour him. She wants him for her own needs, for her own self-fulfillment, for her own actualization. She'll never let him be free. And this is the exact type of parenting that you and I have to avoid if we want to raise children who are able to be independent. So let's dive into 5 practical things that you and I can do to not become the devouring mother, to not keep our children small and codependent, to raise children who don't fail to launch, but instead to empower children who grow up to be their own men and women, independent, actually healthily detached from us, and hopefully they maintain a wonderful, loving relationship as adults, but that they don't need us, that they are not still mummies and daddies, boys and girls, but rather adults who can stand on their own 2 feet. Number 1, help them to launch by not saving them from every failure and challenge. Kids who fail to launch fail to do so for a number of reasons, but one of the main ones is because they have 0 risk tolerance. They're not willing to go out there and try something because they are afraid of failure. You've got to allow your sons and daughters to experience small and gradual increasing challenges, risks, and yes, failures. They need to experience the sting of rejection. They need to experience the scraped knee. They need to experience the fact that they received some pretty harsh critique and feedback, but they put themselves out there and they can do it again. Let them try things on their own. Let them go out there and put themselves out there, even if they end up embarrassing themselves a little bit. Let them make the phone call, write the email, stand up in front of the class, deliver the speech, cook the food, bake the cake. Make them independent beings who are able to take on small challenges in age-appropriate ways and in ever-increasing ways. The devouring mother says this, let me do it for you. Oh, that's too hot. I'll do it. Oh, that's too hard. Oh, that's too dangerous. Don't use that knife. You might cut yourself. Don't tie your own shoelaces. Here, I'll do it for you. The idea is always that there's danger lurking on the other side and you shouldn't ever have to face that. I'll face it for you. In doing so, she devours him. She emasculates him. She keeps him small and dependent on her. He never develops the strength, the skills, the muscle tone, the resolve, the mental toughness that it takes to go out into the world. She wants to keep him in her basement watching video games, and she will feed him the popcorn and the soda as much as he wants so that he never leaves her. That is not going to be you and me. We are going to let our kids experience the world a little bit, come up against it, have independence, go out on a bike ride to the store and do an errand. Put themselves out there, get a little job, try their hand at entrepreneurship, Remember those 29-year-olds living in their parents' basements? Listen, it happens. We all have downfalls in life and bad periods, but this is a trend. This is something that is happening more and more. This is something where we're seeing adults show up at high schools to negotiate grades with teachers. We're seeing adults come with their adult children to their job interviews or calling their bosses to complain about treatment. This is the kind of kidulting that we don't want for our kids. We want them to launch. I want you to look forward to the time where your child takes care of their own business. In Judaism, we have a rite of passage, a coming of age at the age of 13. Now, this is a bit of a tender age. I agree, 13-year-olds are not adults yet. But the idea is to tell them, okay, you need to now stand up and be counted. And one of the blessings that parents say at this ceremony is, thank God, good riddance. And what it means is good riddance for the liability and the responsibility of this person's deeds and actions. My son is now a responsible man taking responsibility for his own deeds and actions, for his own reward and punishment in heaven. And this is a religious concept, but think about the psychology behind it. We're saying, okay, we're done now. There's a certain ceremony that's saying, I'm handing over. You are now becoming a man. You are now becoming responsible for your choices. Now, legally, of course, we're still responsible for them, and we are still responsible in every other way besides. But spiritually, there begins a certain process of letting go, of encouraging them to fly the coop. And what I want you to look at yourself here is, am I holding my child back? Am I keeping them small? Am I constantly jumping in to save them? I want to give you an example from my own life. When one of my sons went on a sleepaway trip with school, it was a 3-night hiking trip, and he was perfectly safe, surrounded by people that he loves and very wonderful teachers, but he got homesick. Now, the sleepaway trip was about a 2-hour drive from my house. I have other kids at home and other responsibilities, and he called me in tears saying, please come and pick me up. Now, the gentle, attachment, conscious, peaceful, loving, warm, nurturing parent in me had my heartstrings tugged on so hard. I heard the tears in his voice, and I was like, Mommy's coming. I'm coming to save you. Just wait there. I'm jumping in the car for a 4-hour ride. I'll figure it out, and I'm coming to get you. But my higher self, my, Jordan Peterson's voice on my shoulder was whispering in my ear and telling me, no, don't save him. He doesn't need saving. He needs to toughen up. He needs to handle this one. He needs to prove to himself that he is capable. If I was in that devouring mother mindset, I would have totally saved him from any kind of pain or obstacle and rushed in, swooped in, and I would have been stealing an opportunity for him to grow a pair, to stiffen his spine, to handle some discomfort. He wasn't in any danger. He wasn't being bullied. He wasn't being teased. He wasn't hungry. He wasn't cold. He was just a bit homesick. And that's something that we all have to learn to contend and deal with. This is a challenge, a risk, a failure, call it whatever you want, that he overcame. And now the self-narrative that he has within himself is not, I was so homesick I couldn't handle it, so mommy had to come and save me like a toddler. But rather, I was so homesick and I did handle it. I overcame it, wasn't comfortable, didn't like it. I can do it. And that is empowerment instead of emasculation. Now, are there times when we have to save our children? Sure. Is there stress that is too crushing, that is traumatizing, that is serious? Of course. I'm not suggesting we just throw them to the wolves, but I am suggesting there are times where you don't rush to bring the sandwich to school, where you don't call the teacher for the child, where you don't pick them up, even though it's a bit not fun and they don't most love it. It's not their biggest preference right now. Now, I do want to just caveat and say I coached him in that moment. We had a phone call, he asked me to pick him up, and I explained to him that, look, if I felt he was in any kind of danger, if he had injured himself, if something was very difficult and really insurmountable for him, if I thought he couldn't handle it, I would drive to the end of the world for him. I wanted him to know that I absolutely have unconditional love and support for him. But I also told him that I believe he can handle this, that I want him to try and hang in there, that I want him to try and coach himself, to tell himself empowering mantras like, I can do this, time is passing, I can handle it, let me focus on having fun. I wanted him to go and try and, sit by the bonfire, hang out with his friends, sing some songs, read a book, learn to handle and distract himself and move on from the fixation and the kind of self-agitation and egging on of oneself that you can work yourself into a distressed, anxious state, but you can also work yourself out of it. I was trying to teach him to calm his mind, to breathe, to talk himself into an empowering mindset. If those are the kind of skills you really want to develop, then make sure to check out the studio, because that is where I teach parents how to empower their kids with empowering mindsets. Number 2, don't over empathize. Look, empathy is important. We all want to feel understood, validated, justified in our pain. And it's important that we show our children unconditional love and warmth, that we do offer empathy and support. The trouble is that so many parenting gurus and parents themselves get stuck at that stage. We get stuck at that stage where our kids, where we just have empathy to offer them. We're like a one-trick pony and we're just going over the motions. I understand. I feel you. That is so hard. You feel frustrated. You feel mad. I can see why you feel upsetting. I too would feel upset in that position, right? We get kind of stuck in that place. But the point is that children need to feel understood, but then they need to be coached to move on. So kind of like the example I just gave with my son being homesick, don't stop at empathy and don't always offer unlimited, endless empathy for every situation. Your kid has a headache, your kid's friend said something mean, your kid didn't get a great grade, a trip that you wanted got canceled, you don't have their favorite snack. These are normal day-to-day frustrations. And if you want more on this, watch my video about trauma and how we are just traumatizing our kids. Because the truth is that whilst compassion is part of that cake called parenting, it's not the only ingredient. We also need to offer boundaries. We also need to offer follow through and consequences and logic and structure and expectations. Our kids don't just need empathy from us. And if you only give them empathy, you become that devouring witch in Hansel and Gretel who's just fattening them up with all the good sweets and candy, all the sugary yumminess, that softness that in the end becomes devouring. So sure, offer some empathy, but don't over empathize. And notice when you over empathize, oh baby, that's so hard for you. When you get into that space, you're actually fragilizing your kids. Did I just make up that word? Maybe I did. Fragilizing. Write it down. You're making them more fragile because we are highly suggestible creatures and you are reinforcing and really doubling down on the fact that poor them, they really are struggling with something insurmountable, with something that they can't handle. Life really is that hard. That's not healthy for them. They need a small dosage of empathy, like that pinch of salt in the cake. But then they need large quantities of other things, like high expectations and high support. So the next one follows on from that, which is to set boundaries and to follow through. Many of us just don't follow through. Do you have proper boundaries on sugar intake, on bedtime routines, on screen time usage, on treating you with respect, on helping out around the home and being part of chores? If you don't have proper boundaries on your child's behavior, then that is a sure sign symptom that you are being too devouring. You're being too soft. You may even be developing this surrogate spouse syndrome where you're seeing your child as your surrogate spouse, looking up to them, wanting the best for them, and seeing them almost like an adult rather than a child that you have to raise and discipline. Setting boundaries means that we have clear rules, that we have clear follow through, and there are consequences of what happens when you don't follow through on those rules. You can offer a lot of support, and I suggest you do, and you can coach your kids to follow through on those things. But this is not that soft landing mommy. This is not that mommy that's always nurturing and always bending over backwards and twisting herself into a pretzel to make you feel okay. This is a mommy that is holding expectations of you and saying, no, I expect you to tidy your room now, or I said to switch off. This is the mommy who knows how to follow through on consequences and boundaries and feels very confident and clear and a lot of conviction in her role. She feels compelled to give her children discipline, rules, and boundaries. And if you struggle with that, then make sure to check out the studio because that's where I can support you. Number 4 is to cultivate your own life. So many of us mothers lose ourselves. We lose our sense of identity into this parenting thing. And when I hear moms of newborns saying, I haven't showered in weeks, I don't remember my own name, I'm wearing the same clothes, I have Cheerio in my hair. This is the type of thing that indicates that you have just kind of given up to motherhood, that you have no sense of self, that you have no boundaries from your baby, from your life as a mother that preserves your self-care and your identity. Now, that is natural and normal and quite common in the baby years. But as your child starts to grow, they're out of diapers, if they're, going to school, this is a time when you really want to check yourself and ask yourself, do I have a life outside of motherhood? In just a decade or two, your kids won't be in the house anymore, hopefully. If we've succeeded in them launching, they're not going to take up this quantity of time in your life. So I'm not saying you shouldn't be a stay-at-home mom or you shouldn't invest everything in these years, but I am saying that you have to have some part of your brain and some part of your self-awareness and self-identity that says, I'm not just defined by motherhood. Listen, I'm the first to say that motherhood is the most important project of my life. My family is where I get the most meaning and the most satisfaction. It's my purpose and it's where I feel fulfilled. But I am still aware that in a few years, I won't have any kids living at home anymore. And I need my marriage, my work, my interests, my community, the other skills that I develop, my intellectual pursuits, my health and wellness, all these other things to hold my sense of identity in place so that I don't have an identity crisis when I'm not changing diapers or cooking meals for everyone anymore. This is the idea of making sure that you have a basic routine of self-care, that you are in touch with yourself as an intellectual person, as someone who has work to do in the world, as someone who has things to offer in friendships, in your relationship, as a family member, as a community member, as artistic pursuits that are outside of motherhood. And if you haven't started that yet, then I encourage you to do so. Inside the studio, I have a whole project on glow up. I have a whole project on becoming a fun mom who has a lot of time and space for other interests. This is something that I think is important because otherwise your children become your world in an unhealthy way. So cultivate your own life and model self-sufficiency, self-containment, and some independence for your children as well. 5, be appropriately loving, but don't go overboard. I've had lots of mothers come to me in private coaching or inside the studio membership and tell me about blurring of boundaries with their kids where they're not so sure how to handle it. For example, one mother who said that her son touches her breasts all the time, and he's of the age where that feels weird at this point. Or another mother who told me that her daughter comes and sleeps in her bed every night, but it's not something she wants anymore. It's too much intimacy, it's too close, and she wants some separation and detachment. I've had parents tell me about their kids touching them in ways, talking to them in ways, demanding things of them that just feel a bit inappropriate. And sometimes it's coming from the parents themselves, right? Like we saw in those videos. The kissing on the lips, the extra intimacy, the deep connection. Listen, we all feel attached and connected to our kids, and that's a beautiful, wonderful thing. And I suggest that you hug them and enjoy them and touch them, and all of that is fine. But there comes a point as kids start to grow up where we need to develop a gradual, slow, and healthy detachment, where it's weird at this point for them to be coming in the bathroom or in the shower or in the bed with us, where we start to develop some levels of modesty and privacy and separation. This is something that operates a little bit differently across different cultures and different cultures' relationship to nudity and co-sleeping and breastfeeding. But overall, the idea is to just be more appropriate. One of the places I see this is in mother-in-law behavior. Often you see little clips and videos of mother-in-laws inserting themselves in their children's intimate relationships and partnerships. I once saw a clip of a gender reveal party and the couple standing there, they're so excited and they pop the balloons and the gender is revealed. And his mother suddenly launches at him and envelopes him in this massive bear hug and completely monopolizes the entire party. She takes all the attention between her and her son away from where it should have been, which is between her son and his wife.
Okay.
So this is the place of just starting to be more appropriate and starting to envision your sons and daughters marrying other people in the future, growing intimate with them, and actually leaving you. Which leads me to my final point, which is to invest in your own marriage and relationship. If you're lucky enough to have a decent person in your life that hopefully you have a partnership or a marriage with, then that is the place to invest in creating the meaningful romance, getting the male attention, getting the adoration, creating a sense of chemistry, desire, passion, fun, and adult connection. And I know this is hard. Like, I get the temptation to transfer and project all of that onto a child where it's just so easy, where it just comes so naturally, where it's just so unconditional, right? Where there isn't all of the baggage and resentment and history and, all the backstories. But that's exactly where the challenge should be. And that's exactly where we need to solve the problems. If you're not yet enrolled in my Married You course, what are you waiting for? Absolutely go and enroll, because it will give you the skills to develop this type of meaningful relationship with your adult partner in an appropriate way. And that will model for your children the type of relationship they can seek out in the future with their own partners. It will give you the sense of calm and confidence, joy, fulfillment, purpose, that you're taken care of, your emotional needs are answered in your adult relationship, that things are as they should be, boundaried, appropriate, normal, healthy, in a positive family structure where the parents fulfill each other's emotional and romantic needs, and the children are free to be raised by parents who discipline them and offer them support, and eventually grow up and launch into the world as independent adults and form their own meaningful relationships without mommy and daddy issues. If that sounds good, make sure you check out Married You. I'd love to see you inside the studio. And now I want to hear from you. Leave me a comment below. Do you agree with what I've shared here today? Do you disagree? Have you seen examples of this in your own life? Can you recognize yourself or your neighbors or your friends or maybe your mother-in-law in some of the things that I've said here today? If so, let me know in the comments below, and let me know if this has been a helpful kind of mindset shift to pinpoint and articulate exactly what's wrong with sunburns and why we don't want to go into the emotional incest, into the devouring mother. We don't want to be that overly nurturing parent, but instead we want to develop healthy boundaries, healthy relationships, and a positive, independent trajectory for our children to launch into their futures empowered and their own men and women. Keep on living that high femme life, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.